A Texas school district is now requiring students to provide a birth certificate before auditioning for the Texas Boys Choir or the Singing Girls of Texas. We are not permitted on a certain big tech video platform to articulate the precise ideological reason for which they are now requiring birth certificates for boys and girls choirs. But I think you catch my drift. And you can hear more at DailyWire Plus and the RSS feed and Twitter, Knowles Show. And actually, that particular ideology is not even the most depressing part of this story. Sadder even than recent eccentric theorizing is the clearly collapsing rates of social trust. We have observed this trend in society for years. Your grandparents didn't used to lock their doors. You have security systems and cameras filming from your doorbell 24/7. Your grandparents trusted your parents, their children's teachers. Today, if you're a sane parent, what that means is you've probably strongly considered homeschooling, if not engaged in it yourself. Social trust has collapsed, now to the point that little kids need to carry notarized government documents to sing in chorus in school. And for good reason. Our society no longer agrees on the most basic facts of life. We no longer speak the same language with which to communicate these facts of life, and so we view one another as barbarians, and sadly, at least some of us are right. I'm Michael Knowles, this is The Michael Knowles Show. Welcome back to the show. In just a moment, some lady I've never heard of sings about how much she hates America by rewriting the national anthem. We'll get to that, and we'll get to what that means in just a moment. First, though, I said that opening, that's the sort of opening that can remain on a certain big tech video platform without being kicked off and having us cast into outer darkness where there's wailing and gnashing of teeth. This part can't stay on that particular social media platform, because the biggest, shocking, most breaking news story of the day, of course, is that CNN Now, when you want to protect yourself, it's an okay transition, not my best transition. You got to check out ExpressVPN. Right now, go to expressvpn.com/Knowles. Profiling, surveillance, and data harvesting are a few things that you probably don't like very much about the tech giants. What can you actually do about it when you rely on so many of their products? Well, the good news is, it doesn't take much for you to take a stand. For less than $7 per month, you can join me and fight back against big tech by using ExpressVPN. How do you think big tech companies make all their money anyway? Well, by tracking your searches, video history, and everything you click on, and then selling your personal data. ExpressVPN helps you anonymize much of your online presence by hiding your IP address, a unique identifier that every device has that allows big tech to match your activity back to you. That is why ExpressVPN is the only VPN that I use and trust on all of the devices to make it much more difficult for them to exploit my data for their own profits. And the best part is, it's so easy, even I can use it. I'm a bit of a Luddite. You just click one button on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, turns it on, keeps people out of your business. Time to fight back. Go to expressvpn.com/Knowles. Get 3 extra months for free. expressvpn.com/Knowles. expressvpn.com/Knowles to learn more. Speaking of fleeing things, if you were on YouTube and you didn't catch what I was just talking about, you got to go to the RSS feed in DailyWire Plus and Twitter at @Knowles Show to see what segment was just cut out there. But speaking of fleeing things, President Trump appears to be fleeing the early presidential primary debates. Here is his advisor, Jason Miller, going on TV explaining why the president's probably not going to come.
At the moment, President Trump has indicated that he's unlikely to participate, at least in the first 2 debates. He's up by 30, 40, and even new polling shows he's up by almost 50% in certain places. It really wouldn't make much sense for him to go and debate right now with a bunch of folks who are down at 3, 4, and 5%. Even Ron DeSantis, who's the second place candidate in the race currently, is at least 20, 30, or 40 points behind. And so ultimately, President Trump will make a decision as we get closer. He has not said anything definitive one way or the other. I'm not expecting him to participate, though.
There you go. Top advisor to Trump saying, I'm not Or rather, Trump is not likely to go to the debates. There's a candidate for him in Iowa tomorrow. All the candidates are going to be there. Donald Trump is not going to be there. So there seems to be evidence he's going to make good on this threat. Trump's critics in the Republican Party, liberal Republicans like Chris Sununu in New Hampshire, they are pouncing on Trump and saying he looks like a wimp.
Former President Trump, the tough guy, the guy that says he's going to fight for America and fights for, but he's not willing to stand up. He's going to wimp out and not get on that debate stage.
We don't know for sure anything yet.
He's going to wimp out that clown, that child, that coward. Why won't he get on the debate stage? Why would he? Why would he? I don't want you to shoot the messenger here, okay? I'm not working for any campaign. I have told you I do my level best not to endorse in primary campaigns. I think I might be the only conservative pundit in America right now who is not actively working for one of the presidential campaigns. I like pretty much all of the candidates in the field. I know a great number of them personally, and I have a great deal of respect for all of the ones that I know, and even for some of the ones that I don't know. So I'm just calling it like I see it, fellas. And you can not like the message, you can be angry about these political facts on the ground, but I'm just telling you what it is. Trump has no incentive to debate right now. He has no incentive. I've got the Real Clear Politics average of polling. Trump is up, according to the RCP average, Trump is up 32.4 points. Now, the RCP average is a very reliable, fairly conservative average of polls that includes Morning Consult, Economist YouGov, Fox, Emerson, NBC, Yahoo, Harvard Harris, CNN, The Messenger, Harris X poll. We've got all of them there. Trump is crushing the field. 32.4 is the average. Harvard Harris has him up 45 points over the rest of the field. This is a 10-person field. It's not even close. So with a commanding lead like that he does not appear to be losing. In fact, his lead only appears to either remain the same or to be increasing as his most intense and serious primary challenger seems to be losing ground. Why on earth would Trump get on that stage? Well, because the voters have a right. They demand the right to see the candidates debate. They don't demand that. If those poll numbers start to change, then that will indicate that the voters are demanding that. But as of now, the voters seem to be extraordinarily supportive of Trump without seeing him debate the other candidates. Well, but the voters should demand it. Well, maybe you think they should demand it, but they're not demanding it right now. Well, I just think it's the right thing to do. Okay, maybe you would prefer that Trump get on the debate stage. I would prefer it in many ways because it would give me more content for my show, and I'm sure it would be extremely entertaining. But there is no moral imperative for Donald Trump to engage in a primary debate, and there is no law that says he has to do it, and there is no particular rule in the Republican Party that says he has to do it. I'm sure the Republican Party would prefer that he do it, but don't forget, Trump engaged in a hostile takeover of the Republican Party. Trump doesn't give a damn what the party apparatchiks want. If the other candidates want Donald Trump to debate, they have to create the political circumstances that force him to debate. And the way to create those political circumstances is to knock his poll numbers down. If the other candidates cannot knock his poll numbers down, then Trump showing up on that debate stage presents all risk and no upside. That's how politics works. Candidates have one goal in a campaign, and that is to win the race. The race right now is not against Joe Biden. The race is for the Republican Party nomination. You might say, well, I just think Trump's not going to be a good general election candidate. Doesn't matter. That's not what we're asking right now. Well, I just think he looks cowardly. Maybe he does. And if enough voters think that he looks cowardly for ditching the debates, that will be reflected in the polls, and then he will be forced to engage in the later debates. But right now, I'm not prescribing anything. I'm not advocating anything. I'm just telling you why it is the case that Trump is inclined not to engage in the debate. He has very little to gain and quite a lot to lose. Now, on the other side of this, look at the Democratic Party. Joe Biden is up 54 points on his next most serious primary rival, RFK Jr. So this is a Kennedy, albeit a somewhat kooky one. This is a mainstream Democrat who's been in public life for a long time. Biden's up 54 points on him. Trump is not quite up 54 points, but he's up a similar amount on his nearest primary rival. And don't forget, there are 3 candidates right now in the Democrat field. It's Biden, Bobby Kennedy, and Marianne Williamson, who's much lower. If Biden's not going to debate, which he almost certainly is not, then why would Trump debate? Well, you might say, well, because Biden is the incumbent and Trump's not the incumbent. Yeah, kind of. We have not had a one-term president run for a rematch in over 130 years. The last president to do it was Grover Cleveland. It's only happened once in American history that a president won non-consecutive terms. So I grant you, Trump is not literally the incumbent here. But practically speaking, for most intents and purposes, Trump is the incumbent. You might say, well, he shouldn't be treated that way. That's wrong. I'm not telling you what should or should be whatever. I'm just explaining. I am describing to you why the circumstances in this primary are different from the other primaries. You can like that. You can not like that. You can pull your hair out and scream to the heavens. If you don't accept those political realities, you're going to become increasingly frustrated as this inevitably unusual primary unfolds. Speaking of learning things, when you want to learn stuff, you got to check out Hillsdale College. Right now, go to hillsdale.edu/Knowles. Are you a few years or maybe a few decades out of school and wondering, what did I even learn? And what was the point? You might think to yourself that you don't have the time to learn something new. Well, if that's you, then know this, you're not alone. It's not too late. Since 1844, Hillsdale College has been providing education in faith, freedom, and character. They've taken some of the core classes they teach on campus and made them available for free online for anyone who wants to learn. That is right, for free. There are 39 free courses to choose from, ranging from the Constitution, the Book of Genesis, free market economics, and so on. They're easy to follow, they're self-paced, so you can start whenever you want. In fact, you can start right now. It's everything you need all in one place with no long-term commitment. Let Hillsdale College be your guide. Learn when and where you want. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/Knowles to enroll. No cost. It's easy to get started. hillsdale.edu/Knowles to register. hillsdale.edu/Knowles. You know, you might have been one of the tens of millions of people who watched Netflix's hit show Making a Murderer. If so, you're going to love DailyWire Plus's new exclusive 10-part docuseries with Candace Owens convicting a murderer coming this summer. Whether it's exposing BLM or certain fallacies in the healthcare industry regarding COVID, Candace has never been afraid to challenge the narrative. She will find the truth wherever it leads. When Candace found out that key facts may have been omitted in Netflix's series, she set out to uncover the real story behind the notorious Stephen Avery case. The end result is convicting a murderer. You will not want to miss it. You will also get all of the other premium content from DailyWire Plus, including The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, What is a Woman, and the largest collection of content from Dr. Jordan B. Peterson, right now at dailywire.com/subscribe. Become a member, see the truth when it finally comes out. Speaking of the 2024 primary, looks like we might get a new presidential candidate on the Democrat side. That would be Joe Manchin. West Virginia Democrat Senator Joe Manchin, who is probably the single most moderate Democrat in the country, certainly at the federal level, along with Kyrsten Sinema, and really more than Kyrsten Sinema even. Joe Manchin is also the most vulnerable senator looking at re-election next year. So you got a Republican challenger who's way up on Joe Manchin right now. So what is Manchin doing? Is he campaigning around West Virginia? No, he's campaigning around New Hampshire. He's going to be at an event sponsored by a group called No Labels. No Labels is this kind of squishy middle ground group, which pretends that losing political distinctions is somehow good. That's the premise. No labels. We should have no clarity in our political process. We should just all be part of the uniparty, is the real meaning of their phrase. But they think it sounds nice because they think it sounds nonpartisan and not nasty and icky and really nice and moderate. And so this would be a natural place for Joe Manchin to go. And he's campaigning with them to potentially consider a third-party presidential ticket on the ballot in all 50 states. The Republican governor of West Virginia, Jim Justice, is leading Manchin in a hypothetical U.S. Senate matchup in 2024 by 22 points. He is absolutely destroying Manchin right now because the people of West Virginia are pretty conservative, but it's a holdover Democrat state. So you got the last remaining blue dog Democrats, conservative Democrats, are there. Manchin has to satisfy his party leadership, but he's got to satisfy his constituency. Those are increasingly pulling in different directions. They're ripping Manchin apart, and so it opens a wide window for a Republican like Jim Justice to come in and beat Manchin. So what is Manchin going to do? His only option, really, if he wants to continue his political career, is either to suck up to Joe Biden to try to get an appointment in a hypothetical second term, or to run for president himself on a third-party ticket. I mention this story not because I think Joe Manchin's going to be president or the Democrat nominee or anything like that. I mention it because it shows the point on the Republican debates, which is that politicians are often motivated by raw, hard circumstance. They're going to go where their opportunity is. This is true of all of us. This is true in our careers. This is sometimes true in our personal lives. This is true in how we move from city to city. This is true in impelling so much of our action. We follow opportunity. And this is especially true for national level politicians who are extremely ambitious men. So if you want to impel a different kind of behavior, if you don't want Joe Manchin to run for president, well, then you've got to give him another option to maintain his political career. If you want Donald Trump to engage in the first primary debates, well, you need to create the political circumstances that will force him to do that. Whether by damaging his poll numbers, changing some rules with the RNC, that's never going to work, or something else that I haven't thought of. But you can't just whine and say, oh no, why are circumstances the way that they are? This is something that drives me crazy about political pundits, and specifically conservative pundits, is they just whine all the time. They just whine, and it's not that they whine about things that they can change. I like the idea of targeted and productive criticism to change things and to improve the state of the country. That's not what I'm talking about. Trump describes that as you whine, whine, whine until you win. That's not what I'm lamenting here. What I am constructively lamenting here is the tendency among many conservatives, and specifically in the pundit class, to just pointlessly moan about circumstances that they are not going to change and that are not going to change on their own. Say, oh no, if the voters just weren't so stupid, they wouldn't nominate this person I hate. Or, oh no, if the political apparatchiks in the Senate or in the bureaucracy would just get along with this legislation that I really want, then the country would be better. Yeah, well, bro, if you want that to happen, then you have to engage in politics. Politics is an art very closely tied to reality. It's not pie in the sky. It's not some fantasy you make up in your own head. You got to create the hard circumstances. Now, speaking of Southern politicians, turn to a politician in Alabama now. This would be Tommy Tuberville, a great U.S. senator who fell into some real hot water. What did he say? I don't know exactly what he said, but CNN's calling him racist.
Tuberville just continues doubling down on his comments. Originally, he made these comments weeks ago, basically arguing that white nationalists weren't necessarily racist. And he was pressed repeatedly by our Caitlin Collins yesterday, and then pressed repeatedly by reporters again today. Here's what he said.
Why you continue to insist that white nationalists are American?
Listen, I'm totally against racism. And if the Democrats want to say that white nationalists are racist, I'm totally against that too.
But that's not a Democratic definition. The definition of a white nationalist
is
that's your
definition. My definition is racism bad.
The definition is that the belief that the white race is superior to all other races.
Totally out of the question.
So do you believe that white nationalists are racist?
Yes. If that's what a racist is, yes. Thank you.
But that is the definition.
And he just continues to double down.
Double down on what? He's Senator Tuberville, why are you such a terrible racist? I'm not. Racism's bad. But why are you super duper racist? Why are you a racist, white, evil white, nationalist, white, cis, male, baddie, Nazi, Hitler, bad? Can you please answer that? I'm not. I don't think I'm those things. What? Yes, so back to you, Jim. Yep, that's really, you can see Senator Tuberville there calling for pogroms and burning crosses. That's right. Senator Tuberville a genocidal racist because, I don't know. Obviously, Tuberville has the right answer here. His clear bemusement and funny contempt for these stupid questions from CNN is the right answer. Don't ever grant them the premise on this stuff. It should go without saying at this point. But you don't need to defend yourself. No, really, seriously, some of my best friends are black, and I totally disavow every made-up term that you can throw at me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, you just kind of bat it away. Huh? Yeah, racism is really bad. Yep. Really? Oh, it's very, very bad. All that bad things are really, really bad. That's so true. But are you a nationalist? What does that even mean? What is white nationalism? What is it? It's just a term that the libs popularized in recent years because they knew that there was a nationalist and a populist movement that was going on, and they don't like that because they're liberal globalists, and so they need to describe that as bad. They need to paint that nationalism as bad. And in America, the way that you call something bad is to call it racist. Those terms are synonymous. So when they use the term white nationalism, all it means is it's racist nationalism, which is to say bad nationalism, which is to say bad. Are you bad? No, I'm not bad. I'm not. Now, obviously, the nation state is far preferable to the liberal globalism that all of these awful people are trying to thrust upon us. But let's take the question seriously here, because I'm not a U.S. senator. I don't need to bat away these stupid reporters. We have a little more breathing room here to discuss these things. What is even the premise of white nationalism? That some people want America to be an exclusively white country. America's never been an exclusively white country. The libs are wrong when the libs pretend that all the white people are really bad, and all the people who have done all the really great stuff in America have been black and Native American. Sometimes they say they're Muslim. They weren't Muslims here until relatively recently, but okay, fine, whatever. Obviously, the libs are wrong about that. The people in the most conspicuous positions of power, the settlers of America, the people who crafted much of the country, by and large, were white people. Absolutely. The libs want to revise that. They got angry at the Abraham Lincoln movie because the Abraham Lincoln movie points out that Lincoln freed the slaves. They say, you can't say that because Lincoln's a white man. The slaves had to have freed themselves. But of course, they didn't do that. So, okay, obviously, yeah, that's crazy. But then on the flip side of it, there are some people who will say, America is exclusively white, strictly white. All the good stuff comes from the white people. None of the good stuff comes from the other people. And that's wrong, too. And the person who, oddly enough, had one of the more insightful visions of this kind of thing is Carl Jung. You might have heard of Carl Jung because Jordan Peterson talks about him all the time. Carl Jung was a psychologist and a pretty interesting writer. I don't agree with him on everything, but he made some interesting points. And Carl Jung observed in America this strange phenomenon whereby he was walking on the streets of Buffalo and he turned to someone he was walking with, and he said, wow, I didn't realize how much Indian blood was in America. I didn't realize how much intermingling and marriage and birth there was with the Indians. And the guy said, what are you talking about? We don't have much intermarriage at all with the Indians. These are Irish people and German people. He said, no, they look Indian. But it's not that their skin looked Indian. There was something about their comportment that seemed foreign as compared to an Irishman or as compared to a German, and that seemed a little bit more akin to a Native American Indian. What's that about? Jung observed that there's something in the American character that seems more similar to what one would stereotypically consider a black man to be like, an African to be like, than, say, a Frenchman or an Englishman or a German or an Irishman, even though the people exhibiting these behaviors were white as the driven snow. What's that about? And what Jung sees there is that this is a matter of acculturation and behavior, that there are ideas that motivate countries and cultures. And these ideas don't just come from genetics or something like that. They come from culture. And so Germany, for instance, is obsessed with the idea, capital I, idea. That's a theme that has motivated Germany. England is obsessed with the gentleman. Gentlemanliness is a motivating, driving concept in England. France, it's glory. Le jeu de gloire est arrivé. And in America, it's greatness. And it's just different. And these things distinguish Americans from other sorts of people. And the way that culture works is not deriving purely from biology or something like that, far from it. That culture is created by this mixing of peoples and geography and history that has occurred since the very beginning of the country, since the Mayflower landed at Plymouth Harbor. I assume CNN would not understand any of that and would not be interested in hearing any of that. But it is a reminder as to why the premise of their question, when they hurl this at you, and they're going to hurl this at you all the time, white nationalism, racism, thisism, and thatism, they're attacking something that nobody really believes at all, and they're doing it because of their extraordinarily shallow and vindictive views of things that they are projecting onto their political opponents. But the reality, as always, in matters of history, politics, philosophy, as always, the reality is much richer and more interesting than white people bad, white nationalism, disavow, much more interesting what has really gone on in our country. Now, when you want to hire much better people than the sort who work at CNN, you got to check out ZipRecruiter. Right now, go to ZipRecruiter.com/Knowles. If you're hiring, you're probably dealing with economic uncertainty. And now more than ever, it is important to hire the right people faster and more efficiently to keep overall costs down. Thankfully, ZipRecruiter is a hiring partner focused on you and your needs. From pricing to technology, everything that ZipRecruiter does is for you and what works best for you. Right now, you can try them for free at ZipRecruiter.com/Knowles. ZipRecruiter's smart technology identifies and matches for your job. It lets you invite the candidates that you really want to apply to your job before other businesses can snag them. I love how straightforward it is. The pricing is straightforward. You know exactly what you pay for before posting your job, so you can stick to your budget with no surprises. Hire the absolute best with the help of a partner that is all about you with ZipRecruiter. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within 1 day. Go to this exclusive web address to try ZipRecruiter for free. ZipRecruiter.com/Knowles, Knowles. That is ZipRecruiter.com/Knowles. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. My favorite comment yesterday is from Rewind Gaming 9000, who says Knowles' episodes keep getting shorter and shorter. It's almost like YouTube keeps making more and more of his show against their guidelines. They do, and they're doing it capriciously, and they're not even telling us what violates their guidelines. And so we are called in this culture to be wise as not wise as doves and innocent as serpents, quite the opposite. Wise as serpents and innocent as doves. And so I've said I'm not going to censor myself, period, punto e basta. So my full show with my full commentary that might violate any other number of big tech guidelines, that's available on the RSS feed, on Spotify, on Apple Podcast, on DailyWire Plus, of course. You can get that on Twitter at MKnowles Show. As for YouTube, if they're looking for some excuse to nuke my channel, I'm not going to give it to them. I'm going to remain on YouTube. I'm going to do my level best to follow their guidelines, and then I'm going to redirect people and say, well, if you want the content that YouTube is censoring from this platform, then you got to go to the other platforms here. And maybe they'll try to nuke me anyway just because they don't like the cut of my jib. But we're not going to give them any excuse to do that. So I don't know, maybe the YouTube episode will be 30 minutes. I don't know, maybe it'll be 35 minutes, 25 minutes. I don't know what it is, but you'll get that full episode, DailyWire Plus, Twitter, and the RSS feed. Speaking of American identity, how do you feel about your country? We just had the 4th of July. Some people don't like their country very much. People like the singer Jill Scott.
Oh, say, can you see by the blood in the streets that this place doesn't smile on you, colored child, whose blood.
Okay, I think we get the point. It's bloody. The blood built this land, and the white people are evil, and the black people did all the good stuff, and they're always oppressed, and okay, whatever. Here is the attention you ordered, ma'am. Here you are. Do you want it? Here, can I give you some attention hors d'oeuvre and some Perhaps an attention digestif along with your meal and entree of attention. Well, she got it. No one had ever heard of this woman before, and now we've mentioned her name. There are plenty of people who agree with her. At least plenty of people who say that they agree with her. And this poses an existential threat to the Republic. As we talked about at the very top of the show today, we now need, in Texas school districts, we need children to present government-issued notarized birth certificates to join the school choir because social trust has broken down so much, and common language has broken down so much, and community has broken down so much. And this would be another example of this. Polybius has a good observation, the ancient Greek historian of Rome, who pointed out that democracy can persist only when there is a reverence for the gods, only when there is serious, disciplined, limited behavior, only when there is respect for parents and elders. And we talk a lot about how democracy and republics are built for moral and religious people only, so there's your reverence for the gods. We talk about how people need to be able to control themselves, or government's going to come in and control them more heavy-handedly. Sure, that's true. We don't talk enough about respect for elders and why you have to respect your elders. Politically, that is. One, it's to have a stable society. Two, it's to preserve the basic unit of society, the basic political unit, which is the family. And three, because it's what connects society through the generations. The older generation cares for the younger generation. The younger generation owes reverence and respect for the older generation. If you hate your parents, you're going to hate your country, because your country was built by your forefathers. A friend of mine, a very perspicacious friend of mine, I've used that word a lot recently. It keeps coming to mind, maybe because of all these incisive visions that keep popping up. A friend said that all of liberalism can be boiled down to, F you, Dad! That's it. That's all you need to know. Forget John Locke, forget John Stuart Mill, John Rawls, a lot of Johns among the liberals. Throw all of their books out, it doesn't matter. All you need to know about liberalism is that it boils down to, F you, Dad! And that's what you see. That's what this woman is yelling about here. The blood in the streets, in this awful place, because all of my forebears and forefathers were bad, and I hate you, Dad, and this is terrible. And this is the liberal view of history. The past was bad, the present is a crisis. The utopia is right around the corner, but we've got to urgently pursue progress. And it rips up everything on which your society previously had relied. That's it. If you got daddy issues, that's not just a personal problem, that's going to bleed over into a political problem, as we see today. Now, speaking of insulting your audience, as this woman has, Fox stock has been downgraded. Fox News, dominant name in cable news, has been downgraded after the viewership has continued to decline. Wells Fargo downgraded the Fox Corporation stock because Fox News' viewership has not rebounded since they fired Tucker, who was their biggest name and actually the biggest name in the history of cable news. In May, ratings for Fox took a nosedive because they kicked out Tucker. The network dropped from a 3 million viewer average to a 1.65 million viewer average in the 8 p.m. hour. It's almost a 50% drop. And they haven't really rebounded. So Wells Fargo has deemed Fox Corporation underweight because Fox News drives so much of the profits of the Fox Corporation. And now with ecosystem risks also elevated, Wells Fargo finds the estimate outlook more negative and below the street. Below Wall Street. Okay. Fox might not be able to ride this one out. Previously, the corporate understanding of boycotts was that boycotts usually don't matter all that much. If they do matter at all, they're going to matter from the left, because the left has the institutional power. And so if the libs call for a boycott, they'll probably cave, at least to some degree, and then everything will be fine. If the conservatives call for a boycott, it doesn't matter. Conservatives are not sufficiently organized. They don't have sufficient institutional power. So ride it out. You wait a week, Bud Light sales are going to increase again. Okay, you wait a week, the conservatives are upset that the main conservative host left at Fox is gone. Okay, but whatever, in a week or two they'll come back. They haven't come back. They haven't. Something has changed here. Two things have changed, actually. One, the political landscape has changed. There is a populist movement, and there are greater platforms for populists to speak, and there's been a flattening of the public square, which the big tech platforms are doing their best to counteract by censoring conservatives. But then you see chinks in the armor. You see an open-minded, if not conservative, at least non-leftist, like Elon Musk. He buys Twitter. Conservatives get to speak again. You see people cutting cords and pulling out of traditional cable to begin with. You see conservatives recognizing that the uniparty establishment doesn't serve their interests, either in its Republican form or its Democrat form, so you're seeing alternatives pop up. People like Donald Trump taking over the Republican Party, even though Trump has no particular affinity or loyalty to the Republican Party. And then the other side of that is that the corporations, even the supposedly conservative ones, have become more liberal. Fox made an intentional choice to become more liberal, to fire its most prominent conservative host, to get rid of a lot of other conservatives on the platform, to blacklist conservatives from the platform, to indulge in radical leftist ideologies, even in the very language that they use. And they just thought that they could get away with it. But there's just, sometimes you reach a bridge too far. And because we're still on YouTube right now, I'll speak ambiguously. Back in the 90s, the social ideologies and movements, they didn't push the conservatives too far. Conservatives didn't like it, but they didn't push it too far. In the 2000s, didn't totally push it too far. Even in the early part of the 2010s, didn't push it too far. But they reached a point on some of the social stuff where a flip just switched. Or a switch just flipped. Or a switch switched, I don't know. And parents said, no more. And suburban voters said, no more. And cable news viewers said, no more. And beer drinkers said, no more. And the corporations are waiting for that bounce back. I hope they don't hold their breath. Now, today is Theology Thursday. And I have my friend Angela Ucci joining. You might remember Angela. She came on and described how she had previously lived as a kind of new age, hippy-dippy, astrology, Reiki practicing person, and then got on the right track of things.
I've been feeling depressed since I was 13. Like something's wrong.
That's a lot.
I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just ready to die at this point, and I'm bawling my eyes out. I just said out loud, Jesus, save me. And something happened.
The rest of the show continues now. If you have questions for Angela, make sure you put them into your chat right now. You do not want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, Knowles, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.